Exemption handling. Right? So it is very necessary that when designing an application, you need to add the exemption handling to your method, to each of the method, right? That has to each of the or instructions that you pass into the computer in order to prevent that particular method, right, from crashing. Now, exemption handling involves capturing runtime errors and responding to them appropriately without exemption handling. An unhandled error can cause your application to crash or expose sensitive information. So we have to be very careful when it comes to this, like exposing sensitive information. Right? Now, why handle exemption handling in flags? Now, the first one is to prevent application from crashing. I remember there are three types of application software, whether you're designing desktop application software, whether you're designing a web application software or mobile application software. It's very necessary that based on the logic of the application, right, based on the functional requirements of the application, for every method you write, always please always try to add the exemption handling. Right, so that if there's any error, it will just handle it without that, but without the application crashing. Right, so to provide custom errors message to users, and to log errors for debugging and monitoring, right? So this one is mainly for developers. So it enables you, let's say when you're designing an enterprise system and we have more than 1,000 or 1,500 modules, more than 100 modules, and maybe during the process of designing, an error occurred. Now, if there is no log error, it may take up to there's every possibility that that error may take up to 2 3 days to get fixed. But if there's a log error, right, so you just see it on the terminal and know where the error is coming from and then fix it. So as a developer, it's very very necessary to implement this, right, because sometimes when you don't add these log errors, right, you find it difficult to easily detect where the error is coming from, right, and that is what we're going to be learning in this and class here so that we can be able to design an efficient web application system. So to maintain a secure and user-friendly experience, that's the last one. So now let's look at now these are the common exemption handling in Flask, which is the Flask built-in exemption handling, which we're going to have the built-in exemption handling, which we're going to be using now, right? Then we have the 500. Then Flask automatically provide basic error handling, right? Then we have the 500 internal server error, and we have the 404 page not found error, which is displayed when the root is unavailable, right? Why this one is shown for uncaught exemption. This is the internal error. Just take note of it. So we're going to be doing this tree. We're going to be doing the flag speed and exemption handling. We're going to be using the 500 internal server error, and we're going to be looking at the 400, which is page not found. Page not found error is displayed when the root is unavailable. Okay, let's start. So let's go to a lesson. So this is lesson 5, right? So I want to run this application and show you guys what happened. So Control C. So let's run this. I've already activated my environment, so you can see it here. So let's run this pi app with pi. Now let's go to the application. Okay. So if I run this, right, so here you can see that we have just one record in the faculty table, which is the computing. Now, if you go to the department table, now we have just one record, which is information technology. Now, you can see here, this information technology department is actually referencing a foreign key. It has a foreign key here, which is referencing a primary key in this faculty table, right? So you can see the primary key is 3, then the foreign key is 3, which means that these two faculty and department has a relationship, which is one-to-many relationship, right? So one-to-many relationship, it means that I can't delete this, right? For me to be able to delete this, I have to go to the department table to delete this. Before I delete this in the department table, I have to still check if there's a relationship between the department and the program, right? So let's check. Now there's relationship. So before I can even delete this, I will still go to the program and delete the other ones and so on and so forth because we have created relationship in all these modules here. So let's go to the faculty table, right? So if I try to delete this, it runs, right? So if I click on this, you can see that it crashed the entire application, right? So it's telling there's integrity error. Now this is one of the disadvantage, right, when the exemption handling is not implemented. And if you go to the PowerPoint slide here, if you go to the PowerPoint slide, you can see that to maintain a secure and user-friendly experience, right, and to prevent application for caching, to provide custom errors message to users, to log errors for debugging and monitoring, so to maintain a secure and user-friendly experience. And so without exemption handling, an unhandled error can cause application to crash or expose. Now, look at this. Expose sensitive information. Now, look at what happens here. So, imagine that I'm a user and a developer failed to implement an exemption handling in this method, and something like this happened. Right? You can see it has exposed the SQL query. Remember that in this framework, right, we're using the object relational mapper. But what the object relational mapper does is that it's just like act like a middleman to make your work look faster, but at the end, it's like taking all your query back to the SQL, to the structured query language, and then collecting, processing the request, and then the database server is to return the response. But look at this now, right? You can see that it has exposed my SQL query, right, which is not actually very good, right? It exposes the integrity error, which is not good, right? Which is not good at all. It's not safe. So for us to stop that, right, so I have to go to the method. So let's go to our method. This is software engineering. So this is the method that controls that. So this method is to delete a row from the faculty table, right, based on the query of ID. So you can see that this is an ORM query, which is the object dot query dot get for ID, which means that if you're writing this in SQL, it's just like you're doing select from the faculty, right, where the ID is equal to something like this, right, where the ID is equal to ID, right? Something like this, right? So it's like, so this is the short form for the object relational mapper. So this at the end is still converting it down to this, right? So it's to check if the ID exists. Now if it exists, now delete a particular row, right? So that is what this does, right? If it doesn't exist, return false for error. That is what this does, right? So now here there's no exemption handling. So I would say Flask provide automated way for exemption handling, like a way that we can actually do this to prevent to prevent that the application from crashing. So the only way to do that, man, first thing to do is now this is the decorate, so this is root, right? This root is delete faculty, right? So this is the function which is def delete faculty. So this is the parameter which we're adding ID, which we are collecting parameter from the HTML which has been defined in this template form here. So here I will use the try, right? So we have to be careful with indentation. So I'll push this, right, like this. So I'll use my exempt. Now I can decide to use integrity error like this, right? Yes, I can decide to copy this and put it here, but I will just use the exception. I can decide to copy this, but I will just use the exemption, which is this one here, right? Exemption, let's see as E. So at the end, I want this to return. Now, I won't return the E because if I return the E, you are still exposing the sensitive information. So what I would do here is this, I say this record cannot be deleted because a relationship has been created. Because a relationship, okay, or because it has been referenced by any I want to put it, right? So at the end, so it returns this. At the end, I will return. So if it's true or if it's not true, right, I will still return the function to get faculty list function, which is actually retrieving all the faculty list, right? So it's very necessary to actually implement all the exemption handling, right, on every method here, right? I just want to do it for one here in this lesson. So on your own, you can actually put it here, yeah, because like this is not actually right? It's not actually correct without the exemption handling because if anything goes wrong, this will go down, this will crash, and sensitive data will be exposed. So to prevent that, we need to add the try catch exemption handling so that we can be able to know that okay, each of the method is safe. Like now, this is not safe. Please try to put the exemption handling for all the methods here. So I only did it for this one. So let's try and see how it works. Right. So let me run this application again. So if I go to this, so let's do this. So you go to the faculty now. If I try to delete this, now this way cannot be deleted because relation will be created. Right? Nobody sees my sensitive information. So it returns this because I can delete it because there's a department table that's referencing this. Right? So now let's do the we have the 404 error, which is page not found, and we have the 500 error, which is the internal server error. So let's try to implement that. So to do that, now we have, you can see here that these are the folders, right? So we have a global template folder. Now this global template folder, I will just, this is where we define our master HTML template, which is the index.html, which every other modules here are inheriting from this index.html, right? So I will just define my 404.html inside this global template file, so which will be 404.html. Then I will have my 500.html. Right. So let's now these 404 and 500 are not actually inheriting from this index.html, so they are standalone. So I will put it. Let me put the title as internal server error. So I'll be fast here. So within the body here, I will just define a header tag which is h1, and I say okay. There is an internal server error. Then can you please go back to the home page. So the home page, I will use an anchor tag, which is A. Then the anchor tag is URL4. So let's go to the init folder. So our first file is this one, right? So which is index. That's, so I'll call this here. So I'll call it here. So it's called index. All right. Okay. Now I'm done with this. So let me copy this and paste it in this file folder HTML and call this page. The page is not found. Right? Okay. Page is not found. Please go to, so page not found error. Page not found error. Okay, now I'm done with this. Well, in case you don't know how we generate this, it's just this exclamation. What I did was exclamation, which is shift one, then press enter. That's what I did here. Right? So we have defined the file for the HTML, and we have also do this. We did this 500 HTML. So next thing we need to do is to go to our global init.py, right? So these are global init.py. So this is where I will define the 404 and the 500 error, right? So now what I will do here is write our dot corrector. So you can just write it anywhere here, which is app.error handler. So there's an error handler here, right? So arbitrary and okay. So this outlet error handler. So what I will do here is def, let's say page not found error. So I'll just have it here. So at the end, let's let me return render template. Right, return render template, which is located in this index, which is 404.html, which is 404.html. So because we are dealing with the database, right? So instead of return, you have to like roll back everything that happens. db.session dot rollback, so that we'll not to avoid the application from, so that every transaction that doesn't occur should actually roll back. So that's what we're going to do here. Right. So let me use this. Okay. So let's try and see what happens here, right? So let me put 400 here. This is 404. Okay, 404. So let's try and see what happens. Okay, then on position argument code exemption. So there's an error. Key error. Okay. So let's run this and see. So if I run this, I'll improve. Sorry. So let me put a page that doesn't exist here, right? So you can see it returns the page is not found. Please go back to the home page. Oh, the home page anchor is not actually showing. So let's go back to the 404. Okay, I didn't actually close this. So let me put it home page. So let's run this again. So this is the home page. So when I click it, it takes me back to home page. So even if I put something here, you can see what happens, right? Rotate it, take me to home page. So that is how it works, right? So now let's do for 500, right? So 500, I'll just it's the same thing. I'll just copy and paste this. I put 500 here. Then let's put 500 here. So page internal, I can put internal server error. Let me use small letters, sorry. Dev internal server error. Okay. Now this return what 500.html. So that is how it's done, right? So automatically, if the page there's any internal server error like an exemption cutoff, so it's going to return the 500.html, right? Then this one here is going to return for the HTML. So we can see that's how we can easily set this. Right? There are so many things here we can learn web application. So just follow me and subscribe on my YouTube channel where you'll be learning more, especially on the AI web application, right? And how I'll show you guys how we can be able to build our model from scratch and how we can be able to integrate our model to our application software and act intelligently based on our function, based on what the application is particularly doing, right? That's what I'm going to be teaching you guys next, right? How to build a model. Now, sometimes it's not really advisable because we have so many AI models, right? We have so many. One of the popular one is OpenAI. Now, the disadvantage of using this is very good for projects, but not good for production. I'll give you a instance why it's not good for production. Now, you can see these APIs, right, have limits, have usage limits. And when you design an application, let's assume that you're designing an e-learning application. You want an e-learning application to actually do some kind of things automatically by itself, like proctoring, where the system can supervise itself, where the system can generate MCQ questions by itself. Now we have libraries that can actually do that. We have OpenAIs that can do that easily, but there's a disadvantage. Now this will work in project like BSc project, but when you're taking it for a serious research and when you're taking it for a production that companies will use, it's advisable to build your own model. And that's what I'm going to teach you guys. It's not hard. Now the disadvantage using that for production is now if you don't come in agreement with the company, now you end up paying some fees for that particular usage, which is about $20 for OpenAI, right? Every month. But when you design your model, right, act intelligently, when you design your model to learn from the data, right, that it was built on, that it was trained on, and also learn from new data, with time, your model grows more intelligent and your system, you see your system very, very intelligent and nobody will ask you to pay any fee. But if you do that with a key, an OpenAI key or any API key, any APIs, because I know most of them are not free, right? Most of them act very good. I don't think anyone is free. You must pay, so you end up paying, right? But it's better. It's always better to build yours from the scratch, right? As a good developer, it's better. It's not hard, and that's why I'm going to be showing you guys how to do that, so that you just end up relaxing at your home, and even you can make an API for yours, so that every other company can still use your API. It can be for free, and you can tax if you want to tax for some functionality. So that's what I'm going to be exposing to you guys how to do that next, right? And there are so many things here, right? I didn't do like the next lesson we're going to be looking at here, we're going to be looking at pagination, right? So the essence of pagination is if you go to the faculty model, right? So let's look at this method. Is a method that retrieves all faculty, right? This is the method that retrieves all the faculty record. Now, this method create faculty, which is the object.create.all in SQL is converted to this, right? Something like this, which is select this star is all from faculty, which is a table, right? Select from faculty. Now, this is not actually a good idea because although it's good here because there's no how faculty can go up to 100. I'm not seeing where we have more than 100, 200 faculties. But in a place where there are a lot of data, especially for departmental courses, where department registers courses every year in a particular session, or we have so many students or something like that, depending on the kind of application you're creating, right? So this is actually wrong, right? This method is actually wrong. Now the reason is this because it's pushing everything out from the database server right down to the user. So if you have 1 million record, if you have 10 million record, if you have petabyte of record, right? Your page becomes slow because there is no pagination here. Now take a look at Google. Let me give you guys an example here. So we have www.google.com. Now, if I type my name, John Wendy, you can see what Google does, right? It always implement pagination, and you can see this is a list, right? This is a list, and this is a list. So Google returns 10 lists per page. Then let's count it: one, two, three, four. Okay. One, two, three, four. Okay, five, six, seven, eight. 9, and 10, right? The last list is images, right? So you can see the pagination down, right? So you can see how the pointer, so when I click on 2, the pointer goes down to the database server and point, because it's showing 1 to 10, so point the next one, which is 11 to 20, and so on and so forth, till it gets to the last, right? That is how it's done, right? Because I'm going to teach you guys information retrieval, right? Especially on natural language processing, how it works, right? So just follow me. So a lot of things I'm going to be teaching you guys here, especially in computing, in cybersecurity, especially in hacking, and some of the stuff that you really need to know as a computing student and also a computing professional. So thank you and God bless you. So our next lecture, we're going to be looking at pagination and how we can implement our own pagination to look like this, right? Thank you and God bless all of you.